Hi, I'm at Wagnalls Memorial Library. I know it looks kind of like a castle. We're gonna go inside and we're gonna learn all kinds of fun information about what Wagnalls is, who made it, why it's here, what programs they offer, and just all kinds of cool things about the person who built it, specifically Mabel Wagnalls. There's also a lot of cool other things like the outside of the building. And then over here we have a great garden area. It's kind of cold here still, but during the spring and summer there's lots of flowers, and we learn about gardening here, and there's all kinds of fairies that come out too. So you'll have to stay tuned and see what kind of stuff you can see inside Wagnalls. Hi, welcome to Rambling Roxy's Adventures Through History. I'm here at the Wagnalls Memorial Library in Lithopolis, Ohio, and we're gonna go on a Mabel tour. Who's Mabel, you ask? Well, that's a great question. We're about to find out. Miss Carol here is going to give us a tour and tell us all about who Mabel was, why she was important, and all the great things that she did. And there's a special surprise too, because I think Miss Mabel is actually going to join us. You ready?
Hi, I'm Carol Dahl, and it is so great to have you here with me today. And we love this library. It's called Wagnalls Library, and it is in Lithopolis, Ohio. Let's see. Right now I'm Carol, but when I put on my hat, I would become Mabel Wagnalls. Mabel Wagnalls is the person who built this library, and she will tell you all about the library and her family and herself. So, without further ado, welcome. My name is Mabel Wagnalls, and I'm here at Wagnalls Library. Let me tell you a little bit about myself. I was actually born in 1869, and I built this library to honor my parents, Adam Wagnalls and Anna Willis. I will get rid of some myths or legends along the way. One of them is that I lived here in Lithopolis. I want you to know, I never lived in Lithopolis. My parents were born here. My father lived here till he was 5, my mother until she went away for college. And this was always our special town, Lithopolis. My mother always wanted to do something special for this town. I did not know what it was until I was almost 50 years old. And at that point, that's when I built this library. I'm standing here in front of this piano. This was one of my pianos. It's called a Steinway piano. It's a grand piano, as you can see. And it was at my home, Do Re Mi Manor on Long Island. I was actually born in Kansas City. However, from the time I was 7 until for the rest of my life, I lived in New York City area. The reason I wanted to show you this piano, you can see how it's built, right? When we first moved to New York City, when I was 7 years old, my father, the reason we moved to New York was because my father had gone to New York. He had something about the American Centennial. Centennial means 100 years. So the United States was celebrating its 100th birthday from 1776 to 1876. My father went to New York City. There he met up with a person that had gone to the same college as him, Wittenberg College here in Ohio. And Isaac Funk was his name. Isaac Funk he went to Wittenberg College. He went to school to become a Lutheran minister. And that's the same thing with my father. He went to Wittenberg College. He went to that school to become a Lutheran minister. Isaac Funk had started a publishing company. And do you know what a publishing company is? What that is they publish books. So they put books together. Authors write books, and then publishing companies put those books out for people to read. So he had met with Isaac Funk. They decided to start a publishing company. We moved to New York when I was 7 years old. My father was making $7 a week at that time, so I was not a rich girl. And that's another thing I need to let you know, is that I did not grow up being rich. I did not. I grew up just like you. Just I was just regular Mabel. So we moved to New York City. My mother and father, we lived in an apartment. It was a very small apartment. So the apartment had 2 rooms. One room was my mother and father's room, their bedroom. The other room was the everything room. We didn't even have a kitchen. My mother cooked our meals over a kerosene stove. You can imagine such a thing. That other room, like I said, was the everything room. So that's where I slept, that's where we ate, that's where I played. And again, it was just the everything room. So when we moved there though, my parents had decided to buy a second-hand grand piano. This is called a grand piano, so you can see how it's built. And I remember being very excited about that move because my parents had bought me that second-hand grand piano. I loved to play the piano. That room was so small, however, that during the day I played the piano, not this one, but one kind of like it, not as nice at all. But I played a piano like this, and then at night I slept on it. Some people think that's funny, but I just thought it was regular. So what else can I show you here? This is a photograph of me, Mabel Wagnalls. And this is called a loving cup. And what that was, it was given to me on the day of the dedication of this library in 1925. So that'll be probably for that. I'll see you later. Are we on?
Mm-hmm.
Okay.
Yes.
So, you'll notice that we moved. I'm going to actually tour the library and show you a lot of our treasures and tell you stories along the way. I wanted to show you these 2 paintings. This one is called Friends and Allies, Smiles in Belgium, once more. And this one is called The Boutonniere, or The Old Couple. And they are, the artwork I will show you, it's going to be all original artwork. And let's see, this artwork was done in the early 1900s with World War I. So this one over here, it's the end of World War I. People are smiling again in Belgium because the war's over. Both of these paintings were painted by a very famous gentleman. His name was Norman Rockwell. And Norman Rockwell, well, I'll back it up for a minute. Why we have these paintings? My father's company, the Funk and Wagnalls Company, I believe is what it was called. Again, it was a publishing company. They did books, they brought books out, they brought out magazines, that kind of thing. Well, the Literary Digest, and you'll see the Literary Digest right next door to that painting. So Norman Rockwell did paintings for some of my father's covers for his magazine, the Literary Digest. And that's why we have some of the paintings. Let me show you some other artwork because I do think it's important. This is a library, yes, but it's also a little bit of an art museum. It's also a theater, and it's also part museum. There is a lot of different things going on in this building, and I want to make sure you see all of it because it is really, really amazing. So we're going to come back here actually. So we can show them this artwork just real quick.
Wow, look at this cool atrium. Chandeliers. Aren't chandeliers the best? Wow, and isn't that window out of a fairy tale? To me, it looks like something from Beauty and the Beast.
Mm-hmm. Yes. So I wanted to show you again some of my family's artwork. When I built this library and dedicated this library, I wanted to share not only literature, but also some of my family's treasures, and some of that includes artwork. So you'll look up here on the walls, and all of this art, it's original. And all of it is from about World War I time frame. So 1917, right around then. I'll show you my favorite painting. It's right here. It's the little boy. It's called, what I call that painting right there is No School. Some things never change. Look at that little boy's face and that dog. He forgot to close his window.
Oh no.
So there's that, and then there's a couple other pieces up here also.
Oh, that looks like that might be another World War I.
Yes, all of this artwork is from that time frame. Let me know when you're ready.
Ready?
Okay. I wanted to show you, this is the actual outside of the original outside of the library. So this stone, how this came to be, I'm going to tell you how the library came to be. I told you how my mother always wanted to do something special for Lithopolis. We didn't know what that was, and we really didn't have money to do anything. However, it's 1914, my mother passed away, which was very sad. I married in 1920. His name was Richard Jones. We moved to Long Island, and the name of our home was Do Re Mi Manor. That home needed a lot of work. So Richard, Mr. Jones, my husband, started working on the house. I realized that he was a great builder. And it was almost like an epiphany, like a great idea all of a sudden. I thought, oh my goodness, that's what we'll do. We're going to build a library to honor my mother and father. That is exactly what my mother would have loved. I've got to tell you something. Lithopolis means city of stone. So there was a stone quarry right behind us. That stone quarry, though, this was like 1923. That stone quarry, though, had actually gone out of business. Nobody wanted stone anymore because concrete had come in. Concrete was really important. So, but I wanted, again, to honor my mother and father. I wanted to tell our family's story. So I bought the stone quarry. I hired everybody back, and that's who built this library. So this stone is actually from right across the way.
Wow, that's pretty impressive.
Mm-hmm.
Locally sourced.
Yes. Notice this artwork up here, the black and white. That is actually, oh, I'll show you the book. That is from my book. I ended up writing 8 books. And this book, The Palace of Danger, has that artwork in it.
Wow.
So there it is in the book, and then there's the original artwork on the wall.
And you can just come and check that book out and read it and read one of the books she wrote. That's pretty awesome.
That's very awesome. I ended up actually writing 8 books. And I love to write. I love to play music. I love playing the piano. So my mother's intuition, do you know what intuition is?
And is that something like inside you?
Mm-hmm.
Oh.
Like your thoughts, like you see something inside somebody else.
Oh.
Mm-hmm. So my mother's intuition that I would make a great author and musician was right on the mark.
Oh, that's always nice when you see something in someone and they grow to their potential.
Yes. It's truly amazing. And I'll tell you a story. So the name of the architecture of this building is called Tudor Gothic. And I'm going to back up for just a moment. When we decided to build this building, I told you how we used the stone out there. We hired those workers. That's who built it. I wanted well, I need to tell you this. My New York friends, when they heard that I was going to build a library in this small town, because there were only 300 people who lived in this town. When my New York friends, they were very fancy. When my New York friends heard that I was going to build this library, what do you think they thought about me?
I don't know. I think that I would maybe kind of silly.
They thought I was crazy. They really, really did. They said, Mabel, all that for 300 people? What will they do with it? And I replied, even if there were only 3 people, I would still build this library because it's to honor my mother and my father. So we decided you have to have an architect when you're going to build a building. Do you know what an architect is?
Art. It's not an artist, right?
It's kind of like that. An architect is is the person who does the drawings for buildings. So the architect is the person, you tell them how you want the building to look, and then they draw it, and then from that, the people build the building.
Oh, nice. It's like art and engineering, so like art and science together.
Yes. So that's an architect. I wanted to, again, my New York friends thought I should hire an architect from New York. I didn't want to do that. I asked one of my friends here in Lithopolis, do you know of an architect? And she gave me an architect's name. He lived in Columbus, nearby Columbus. And I said, now he hasn't done anything big yet, right? Because I want to give somebody a first chance to do something. And
Looks really good on the resume for future jobs.
Exactly. And his name was Ray Sims. And what do you think my New York friends thought of me hiring an architect from Columbus who had never built anything before?
They might be kind of concerned if the library would even be built. I mean, if he's never built anything before.
Exactly. And they thought I was, kind of crazy.
So a little bit.
So I hired Ray Sims. We sat down, my husband, me, and Ray Sims, and we talked about what kind of architecture this should be. And Ray Sims thought, you know what? I think Georgian or I think colonial architecture would be a good fit, because there's different types of architecture. But I said, no, I want Tudor Gothic. And the reason being, my mother and I had lived in Berlin, Germany for 4 years. We went there so that I could continue to learn more piano. Isn't that amazing?
Yeah, being inspired by old architecture and on your travels, I mean, that's every little girl's dream.
Mm-hmm.
Or little boys, everybody's dream.
Exactly. So I said, no, I want it to be Tudor Gothic. So they started building. My husband actually was here a lot because he helped build this. And I would come on the train from New York. So one time I came on the train and these gentlemen came running over to me. They said, Mabel, we've cut down this tree and there are 4 baby owls in it. What should we do?
Oh no.
And I said, don't you worry, we'll remember them. So that's why we have 4 owls in this room.
Wow, it kind of is reminiscent of Hogwarts or a few other really cool places. They came after this, so really Wagnalls was the original.
Exactly. And then underneath, I don't have to tell you about the shields. And then underneath those owls, you're going to see a shield. That's what I call them. And it's just another way of telling my family's story. These are 4 things that were really important to my family. So up here underneath that one owl, you see the eagle, and that's patriotism. And then over here, you see children and a globe and books. What do you think that's for? What does that represent?
Oh, is that about educating the world?
Yes.
Wow. That seems like a very important, lofty goal to have and to be remembered for.
Mm-hmm. And then over here, we have the Star of David, and we have the Alpha and Omega. This one's kind of hard. This one is for Judaism and Christianity. Those things, again, were very important to my family. And last but not least, We have the bees. You can see them up there. And what that represents, this is another hard one. What that represents is hard work. Because our family...
Like worker bees?
Yes.
Wow.
Mm-hmm. And then the windows, we also had the windows. It was tell my family story. So you can't see the first one, but it says Seal of Ohio. Then you had the printing press. You have the log cabin, because my parents were born in log cabins right here in this town.
Oh, wow.
Mm-hmm. And then you had the lamp of learning, and because education again was important. And then the presidential seal, you can't see that either, but again, patriotism. And then that W is for my mother's last name, Willis, and my father's last name, Wagnalls. And I don't mind telling you this, but my father, when he married my mother, he took her last name, Willis, and he made it his last name.
Oh, wow. That was very forward thinking for the time.
Mm-hmm. So from then on, he was known as Adam Willis Wagnalls.
Wow, that's pretty impressive.
Mm-hmm.
Oh, enter my favorite part when I was a little girl. I used to go by this stairway all the time. One of the myths that I always kind of talked about was I thought it was actually Mabel's bedroom and that we weren't allowed up there because we knew that she wasn't still alive, but we were kind of afraid that that's where the private living quarters were. So that was one of the things we always thought went on, but it's a pretty cool staircase, and I think we're going to find out the real reason that it's...
Okay, we will come over here and I'll just show I'll tell the story of him. I also need to say, okay. So I'm going to show you some treasures now.
Ooh.
Mm-hmm. First thing I need to show you, because I don't want you to think that I make up stories, but here's a photograph, and you see that baby owl?
Oh, is that the owl that was from the story in there that you guys put in the library?
It sure was, and it talks here on the photograph about the 5 owls, because there was the mother owl.
Wow, that's really impressive that you guys got a picture of the owl. I have a hard time catching pictures of owls in my own backyard, and I have a fancy, well, sort of fancy camera, a smartphone, fancier than the cameras they had then.
Exactly. And let's see what else I can show you. I'm going to tell you about one of my friends. His name was Harry Houdini.
Is that the guy who we hear about that makes people disappear?
Yes.
Oh my gosh.
He was a friend of mine. So this is actually some letters he wrote me. And I'll just show you this one. This one he's writing as a friend. So that's him. And back in the day, you used typewriters.
What? Is that the thing where you go click, clack, click, click?
And if you make a mistake, you have to type the entire letter over. But I love this about Harry. See, he made a mistake there, but he said, I am not going to type this all over. So he just scratched over it and he typed over it. And he wrote in this letter, it's from 1916. And he wrote, you are right in saying my name is being observed. Perhaps I may eventually get into the dictionary sometime.
Yeah, he didn't even know he was going to become famous later and that we'd still know who Harry Houdini is today.
Exactly. And the reason, you know what I just realized? You may not even know what a dictionary is.
Right? I think there's one on my phone. Sometimes if I press on a word, it looks it up and it tells me what it is.
That's what a dictionary is. But when I was growing up and what my father's company did, because they were publishers, they actually put out books. This is how big the dictionaries were. And I don't mind telling you, it's heavy.
Oh man, can you imagine trying to look up spelling words in that?
Right.
Or carrying that to school? Oh my.
So this is a dictionary, and yes, you would not want to put that in your backpack today.
No.
So that dictionary, again, my father was the president of Wagnalls, and They did dictionaries. They became pretty famous for doing dictionaries. And so what Harry was hoping would happen was that his name would be in the dictionary. And what do you think his name would mean if it was in the dictionary?
Someone who disappears?
You pulled an escape, or you made someone disappear.
Have you guys ever heard that saying? You pulled a Houdini? It might not be as common now, but it's pretty common for a while. I bet if you looked it up, that's exactly what it would say, too.
I don't think it's in the dictionary anymore.
Oh, it's not?
But it's in this dictionary from 1920.
Nice.
So he did end up having his name in the dictionary, which is pretty fun. And I will tell you about another friend of mine. His name was Joshua Slocum. Let me get these out. Joshua Slocum was a sailor. He loved to sail. This is back in the 1800s, back in 1880s, 1890s. And the thing was, nobody wanted to sail anymore because they would go on steamships. Can you think of why the difference between a sailboat and a steamship?
Does a sailboat use like wind, and then a steamboat would use like steam somehow?
And the steamship, which one do you think would be faster, the wind or steamship?
Well, like on a windy day, the sailboat might be faster, but sometimes there's not always wind, right?
Right. Steamship was a lot faster. So nobody wanted to go on sailboats anymore. So Joshua Slocum, he ended up losing everything. Now he's poor. He's living outside Boston. Somebody had given him an old sailboat. And he kept telling everybody, I'm going to fix this sailboat up, and I'm going to be the first person to sail around the world all by myself.
Oh, wow. What a lofty goal. That seems pretty impressive.
Now, he was one of those people, though, that the mothers would say to their children, stay away from him, please. Because he was kind of different. And a lot of times when people are different, it kind of scares us maybe or something.
We're not always as understanding.
Right, that's exactly it.
They just have a different way of thinking and doing, and sometimes that can scare us because they're so into their ideas and passionate about everything.
Exactly. So he finishes his sailboat, and I come to visit him. He was about my father's age. My father, I told you, he was president of Wagnalls, so he had given me a big box of books because Captain Slocum would have a lot of time on his hands, sailing around the world. So I brought him a box of books, and I also brought him this book, Miserere. This is the first book that I ever wrote.
Oh.
So it was I believe it was in 1895. Let's check. And I told him before he left, he's leaving from Boston. It's right before he leaves. I show up with this box of books. I give him this box of books, and I tell him, Captain Slocum, the spray will come back. Because you know how boats have names. The name of his boat was the Spray. So now it is 3 years later, and he did it. He was the first person to go all the way around the world by himself on a sailboat. That's amazing. And I came
with all those big storms and everything.
Exactly. So I came running to Newport, Rhode Island. That's where he came in. And he gives me back this book.
So that book went all the way around the world in a boat?
Yes.
And there's no water damage?
Exactly.
Wow. I know sometimes I leave books out in the rain, and that can be a problem. I can only imagine the care he must have taken with this book.
That is I'm glad you said that, because he did. He was very careful. So he gives me back this book, and here it is. 1895 is when he left, and this is called a calling card. And what that was, because there were no telephones back then, you would give someone a piece of paper, and you would write something on that piece of paper. And so this was my card, and it's got my address, and I told him, I'm wishing you a safe and successful return. 1895, I dated it, April 28th. And then 3 years later, June 28th, 1898, I am the first person to sign his registry. So I was his first visitor when he came back to the States, is what that means. And he hands me back this book. And he wrote in it, he said, "What ups and downs, Miseraires, you have had in your rounds. You have been twice through the Straits of Magellan, once off Cape Horn," and it goes on from there.
Oh,
can you imagine?
Yeah, that's like a good luck charm.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah, I think it should stay in this library and keep the good luck going.
Yes. And then I was very touched. I mean, what a nice thing for Captain Slocum to do. Take care of this book, give it back to me, write in it.
Mm-hmm.
And then I went home, and I don't mind telling you, he edited.
Oh.
He rewrote my book.
Did he do some edits? Oh, yeah, I know how that is. I've written several books and then I give them to people and they come back with some edits. I'm like, oh, I didn't even see that. So he had a lot of time to sit and look at all those mistakes.
Yes, he did. Yes, he did. So he wrote that from my book, and then a couple years later, 1900, he writes his own book.
Oh.
Sailing Alone Around the World.
Did she edit his book?
No,
because that would be kind
of
fun.
I did not. And he wrote in it to Mabel Wagnalls, who said the spray will come back. And you know, when I saw that, I thought, I didn't even remember telling him that.
Mm-hmm.
But it made me think how important encouragement is.
Yes.
All those people, when he was working on that boat, he knew that people thought he was strange. You know, I mean, you can tell from the way people act around you.
Mm-hmm.
But then I came to him with a whole box of books and told him this spray will come back. So it made me realize, wow, that's really important encouragement. And do you know what encouragement is? I'm using that word, but I forgot.
Is that like trying to get people to do things, but in a nice way?
Mm-hmm. It's telling them good job. That's encouragement.
Oh, like positive vibes, good vibes might be something we might say today. Nice. Yeah, it's encouraging people to do things really, and it comes back to you, as you can see.
Yes. So that touched me. And then I turned a couple pages and I couldn't believe it. He dedicated this book, he said, to the one who said the spray will come back. That was me.
Yeah, you never know what your kind words can do in a moment, and they might change someone's life forever in a good way.
Exactly. So that's my friend, Joshua Slocum. Let's see. Can I tell you one more story?
Yeah.
This story is, where is it? Here it is. This is probably my greatest treasure. This is from my father. And look at his beautiful handwriting. Back then, he wrote this, he wrote it, that's called cursive, right?
Mm-hmm.
And it's from September 26th, 1905. Now, he had started the publishing company, Funk and Wagnalls, in 1876. There's now, well, we'll start over, okay. So this is a treasure of mine. Letter from my father, dated 1905. He actually wrote it from Funk and Wagnalls Company, and I don't mind telling you. So by this time, he's quite a wealthy man, but he's still recycled.
Oh.
It's still good to use. Isn't that awesome?
Yes.
I love that about my dad.
Yeah, always good to not waste the things given to us.
Mm-hmm. So he wrote this letter. He wrote it to his friend. Her name was Lem McManus. And he had actually gone back to Finley. That's where he saw Lem McManus. There was a tree in Finley that he liked to sit in when he was little. He was born in Lithopolis, but when he was 5, he moved to Finley. Again, there was a tree there. And it became known as the Wagnalls Elm. And he would sit in that tree and he would think about things. So he had gone back to Finley, had seen Lem McManus, had told her about that tree. They probably talked about the tree, had seen the tree. And when he came back to New York, she had sent him a photograph of that tree. And he wrote this letter all about his memories of that tree.
Oh, wow. Wow, do you guys ever have a thinking tree? I know I like to go out and climb trees when I was younger, and I'd think about things, but I never had like a specific thinking tree. That's pretty awesome. Maybe that's something in the summertime we can try to find.
Or just any place that's special to you, a thinking place, just a special place to sit and think. So I'll tell you one story about this that he wrote about in this letter. So my father was about 6 or 7 years old, and there was a gentleman from Groveport, Ohio, going through to Findlay. So he was visiting. It was the last day of my father's school year, so it was June, whatever. And my father had, back then on your last day of school, you would do a recitation. So you would do, let's say, your multiplication facts or a poem, something. So my father had done his recitation, and when he came home from school, his mother had been there, and she saw what a great job he did. So she thought, you know what, Adam, why don't you do your recitation for this gentleman? So he did. And the gentleman, my father wrote, did you notice how I put it in quotation marks? Because you know how there's quotation marks if it's true, like if you actually said it? He said, I put it in quotation marks because I never forgot what he said. And this is what he said. He said, the gentleman should have said something like, good job. That's not what he said. He said, that is a fine job, young man. You continue your studies, and one day you will live in the great city, sit behind your desk, and bring in thousands.
Wow.
My father had never heard of New York City. At that time, he was trying to raise 5 cents for a pair of skates and was having a hard time. So he couldn't imagine sitting behind a desk and making money. But he thought to himself, if an adult says something, it must be true. So he sat in that tree and he would think about things like that.
Wow, I wonder, have you ever had an adult say something impactful to you? I wonder what it is.
And again, it's the importance of encouragement. So we will move on with me. And that portrait, and the other portraits, my mother and father's portrait, that was done by a family friend of ours. His name was John Dunsmore. And that actually is a self-portrait of John Dunsmore. Do you know what a self-portrait is?
Is that like a selfie? Only they had to paint themselves? That seems like it would take a while.
Exactly. So that is John Dunsmore, and that self-portrait is based on that photograph.
Oh, did someone take the picture first and then he did the drawing? Oh, that's helpful. I know if I were to draw myself, it would not. I can only imagine how I'd make myself look.
Exactly. And this other artwork also is by him. He was known for his Revolutionary War art. So that's Mount Vernon, where George Washington lived. And then that is Betsy Ross.
Oh.
You know who Betsy Ross is?
I think I kind of remember. In the picture, there's a flag. Did she make our flag?
She made the first American flag, you're right.
Wow. Another famous woman being promoted here in Wagnalls Memorial.
And then the last piece of artwork, that's from one of my books, Rosebush for 1,000 Years.
That almost looks like kind of maybe the outside of Wagnalls a little bit. It's not, but it looks like there's some inspiration there.
That's exactly right. I'm glad you noticed that, because that's from a monastery based on a monastery in Germany.
Oh, where you guys went to visit?
Where we lived for 4 years. So, and that's again, it's Tudor Gothic architecture.
Oh, that's definitely where the tower comes into play here.
And we will come in here now. Let's see. So we have covered artwork, because I told you that we had it was like a lot of art. We've talked about the library, and now we're in the theater. If you can imagine, have you ever heard of a library having a theater?
No, but I heard stories from my grandpa of how when he lived here, they actually came to the theater and they would see plays and movies for like a dime, which is crazy because like you can't get into a movie theater now for a dime. But I haven't heard of any other library having a theater.
Exactly, exactly. And the movies that we showed, I was not trying to make any money. I wanted to provide opportunities for the children and for the families here in this small town. Do you know what an opportunity is?
Is that like a chance to do something
Exactly right.
that you might not otherwise get to do?
Exactly. So instead of having to drive all the way to Columbus or far, far away, we had movies right here. And again, you're right, they were 5 to 10 cents. And I don't mind telling you, I want to show you this. Can you take a look at that?
Oh.
Can you imagine what that's for?
No.
Well, back in the day when people came to the theater, the gentlemen, of course, would be wearing hats.
Oh. So
And-
would it be like that?
That's exactly it.
Oh.
That's exactly it. Because if a person was wearing, especially a top hat, and was sitting in front of you, you're not going to be able to see the stage.
No, yeah, no one likes it when you're at a sports game or anything and someone in front of you is wearing a hat and you can't see. It's the worst.
Exactly. So this is the theater, and right from the start, we have shown plays, there's been musicals, there have been concerts. Again, the movies.
And there's weddings that have gone on here. I know my own wedding we had right here because it was the coldest day in the fall, and we got to get married right here on the stage. And I remember also doing our school plays here. We would walk over from Bloom Elementary and we did all of our winter plays up here on the stage because we didn't have a stage or anywhere to perform at our elementary school. So we were able to put on all those concerts here. And I hear that you guys still do some theater productions around, like there was one at Christmas time, I think, and a few other times. And you can just, when you go to the Wagnalls website or their Facebook page, you can see when those are and you can buy tickets, right? And still go to kind of almost like an old-fashioned play.
Exactly.
What a memory to make, right?
And it was actually on that stage. Remember from the very beginning when we were in front of one of my pianos, there was that loving cup that was given to me on that stage on the day of the dedication in 1925.
Wow, what a great place to have that dedication.
So we will. It's a beautiful room. I don't mind telling you that my husband, Richard Jones, thought that this was going to be used for both a theater and a social hall.
Oh.
That made no sense to me. When we were building, I realized we were going to be able to put in a basement. And I said, that's where the social hall will be. My husband and I said, no, we kept going back and forth till I finally said, let's split the difference and do it my way.
Oh, yes. Sometimes we have great ideas and they should be followed through on. I know in the basement there's a really cool area where you can have those things. I remember my church group would go down there, or Girl Scouts, and we would have all kinds of areas down there to do things. So that was really nice that you thought of all those things that are still being used decades, even now it's 100 years later. Oh my goodness, time has flown by.
Yes, and I'll take you down there. I'll show you a little bit.
Oh. I won't lie, the stairs always scared me a little bit when I was little. And I've heard some ghost stories, but I won't get into those today. But I don't think that there's any scariness going on.
So this
Wow.
is the social hall. So you could have wedding receptions, so you could get married upstairs in the theater, come down here and have your reception. And the reason why I wanted the social hall when I was little, and I would come to visit my grandmother, because my grandmother lived just one street over, and it was my mother's mother. And even though I never lived here, I would spend quite a bit of time here because my grandmother lived here. When we were here, and you always had a church social, and they were always trying to raise money. Well, the women, the poor women, they had to bring everything. So if you can imagine, if it was raining, you got wet.
You had to bring all the food, because like usually socials to raise money, you bring in food and drinks, and that's what helps raise the money, and that's a lot to cart in everywhere and to have a place for it. Because before that, was there any place to hold one of these?
There was not, and you even had to bring your tables, your chairs, your plates, everything.
Oh my.
So I thought it was important that we have this room, and I'm so glad my husband finally saw the light. And I'll show you, I even had china made, because I didn't want the women to have to bring anything. We also had a full-size kitchen, and so you could fix everything here, and pots, pans, everything. And then the china, everything was served on china. It was a wonderful, wonderful way to have the town gather.
Yeah, you thought of everything.
Mm-hmm.
It'd be nice if we thought of all those things even today on how to make our social areas beneficial to everybody.
Exactly. So here is, this has been updated, but this has always been the kitchen. Again, we always had refrigeration, we always had ovens, stoves, we had serving pieces, things to cook with. I have always had that.
And I heard do you guys do cooking classes? I heard that there was at one time there were some cooking classes here.
There were. I don't think we're doing them right now, but stay tuned.
Yeah, they might come back.
And then here, this room has a special name. Do you know what the name of this room is? Come on in. It's called a pantry.
Oh, what's a pantry?
Well, that's where you keep all your, look at this. I can open up anything and it's going to be filled.
Oh my, look at all those plates.
And it's all going to say Wagnalls Memorial.
Wow.
So these are lunch size. We have lunch size plates, and there's larger plates for dinner. There is silverware up there that I don't even know if we've used. Here is spoons. This drawer is just used for spoons because there are so many spoons. The Wagnalls Memorial again.
Oh wow, and those are all this has all been around since Mabel put it in. Wow, she really made sure to take an account for any time like a plate breaks or anything.
Exactly.
So there is enough to last 100 years later.
We started off with 150 place settings, and then I realized we'd need more. We ended up with about 300, and as things broke, you're right, we would replace them.
Wow.
So there is, I'll just show you that. I mean, I do want you to know there's serving pieces. There's 2 or 3 different types of mugs. There are, again, serving pieces, and over there then that's filled with a lot of the glassware, and there's a little bit here. It's got the W on it for Wagnalls.
Yeah, for all the punch that would be served and other drinks for all the socials.
And now, last but not least, we're going to go up to the tower room.
Oh, my favorite. I'm so excited. I can't wait.
Tower rooms. The 2 tower rooms, the reason why I wanted them, well, first of all, Tudor Gothic, you need tower rooms and they're neat. But the first tower room was for Edwin Markham. Edwin Markham was a family friend of ours. He was a poet. So again, I wanted to encourage the children. I wanted to share our family treasures. And so we took Edwin Markham, his poetry in his own handwriting, and put it in the first tower room.
Oh.
And then the second tower room is for John Ward Dunsmore. He's the artist, and he did a lot more paintings than what we've seen today. And the second tower room was filled with his artwork. So anytime this library was open, you could go up, look at poetry, read it. You could go up to the second tower room and look at all that artwork.
Oh wow! So it wasn't Mabel's bedroom up here, but it was kind of like a reading room where you could go and see some pretty cool things.
Exactly, and a little bit of a museum. You're right. Part reading room and part museum, art museum.
Oh, now this would be a place that I would like to hang out and read some poetry or maybe even write some.
Exactly. And you can see some of his poetry right there, Edwin Markham's. This was his most famous poem, Man with a Hoe. And that is a bust of Edwin Markham. Kind of a bust as a statue, just with a head. And aren't those lights fun?
Yeah, they really fit the Gothic medieval vibe going on.
Mm-hmm. And let's see, Edwin Markham wrote Lincoln, the Man of the People, and that poem was actually read at the dedication of the Lincoln Memorial.
Wow, so we have a real bit of history here, someone who did quite a bit for his community and the country.
Mm-hmm. He was quite a poet. His 80th birthday party was held at the Carnegie Hall in New York City. Carnegie Hall is a very famous theater.
Mm-hmm.
And let's see, I will show you this. I did this in 1880. So I was born in 1869. So how old do you think I was?
In 1880, 20?
That's 11 years old. I was 11 years old.
Oh
And
my.
that's something. And so I did, this is called a sampler. And
Oh.
every young girl did samplers. You'll notice something about my S's.
Oh, are those backwards?
They are.
And what, did you write on the sampler or how did you make that?
You take your needle and thread.
Oh, so it was like stitches.
Mm-hmm. It's all stitching.
Wow.
And I lived in New York City, but it says Lithopolis again because it was always our special town. I don't mind telling you. My mother, I told you how my mother taught me at home.
Mm-hmm.
My mother knew that my S's would turn back around at some point, and they did.
Oh, that's great.
That is good. But she also thought, my spelling was not very good. My spelling was never very good. And my mother thought my spelling would improve. It never improved. So I ended up being kind of related to that dictionary.
Oh, did you spend a lot of time looking up the correct spellings of words?
I did. And people thought it was funny that the daughter of the dictionary man couldn't spell.
But you still wound up doing some great things, even though we all have flaws.
Exactly.
And not always do things in the perfect way, but we still can move past
the hard stuff.
Yeah.
I was not good at spelling. That's okay. I still ended up being an author.
Yeah.
I still ended up being a concert pianist. Everybody has their strengths and weaknesses, and that's okay.
And you build on your weaknesses and use your strengths, and you can go on to do all kinds of great things.
Exactly. So what else can I show you in this room? Oh, I told you how Lithopolis means. What does Lithopolis mean? It's Greek for city of stone. And so there was a stone quarry. I told you about that. That stone, a lot of that stone was used to make tombstones. And there was a lady, her name was Alta Junkert. She became known as the Tombstone Lady.
Oh.
And this is a photograph of her.
Oh my, that's interesting. Were a lot of the town's tombstones made from that quarry?
So that is everything I can think of. And then again, the second tower room, there's a door right there. That goes to the second tower room. And the room is just like this room. But there's nothing in it right now. But that would have been filled with John Dunsmore's artwork.
Wow, what a great place to come and learn all kinds of past and current history. If you come check out Wagnalls Memorial, you can actually go on a tour with Mabel herself. Just give Wagnalls a little notice and ask and request for a tour, and you can go on a tour with Mabel. They have specific kid tours. They also have adult tours, not adult only, but you can have kids and adults. But if you want one specifically geared towards the youngsters in your life, you can book a tour And you can see all of this great history, and you can also check out some books on your way out.
Thank you very much.
I want to say thank you very much again.
Thank you so much for coming out today. I enjoy sharing my stories with children, especially because they can learn. And again, I wanted to encourage the children of this town, and now we can do it even on a wider basis. If there's something you want to do, think about it, pray about it, work hard. You'll be amazed at what can happen.